Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for today's panel discussion. My name is Jiamin, and I'm the lead at Monitor, the leading platform for e-commerce logistics insights. So today, we are hosting our second panel discussion on sustainability, but this time with a focus on the logistics and supply chain aspects. And we're extremely excited to have with us logistics experts from both the e-commerce and logistics space to share their perspectives and insights with us. So before we get started, as usual, if there are any questions during the presentation or the discussion, please type them in the question box at the LinkedIn live comments below or the LinkedIn event chat. And we'll bring all these questions up towards the end of the discussion. So without further ado, I'll hand the time over to our moderator and supply chain expert, Zsofia. Zsofia, please.
Thank you, Jamin. Thank you for the invitation, and thank you for everyone for being here. I think it's a really good opportunity for everyone to join this discussion, because what we have today, or the topic we have for today, is probably the most relevant for all of those who are interested in sustainability. So we have seen so many companies, making mission statements, 2030, 2050 goals around sustainability. And quite frankly, not many of them are really well equipped, to actually execute those plans or those mission statements and visions that they committed to. So today, I have two guests here, James and Bernie, whom I'm going to introduce in a second, and they can tell us, our audience, about really how to make this happen, right? So James Atkinson from DPD Ireland, and Bernie Wiley from Who Gives a Crap from Australia. So we have two gentlemen here from two different parts of the planet, and they both work and are experts in logistics and transportation and in supply chain as general. So it's not just the logistics part, but it takes up pretty much the biggest portion of their time. So therefore, I think they are very well equipped to give us, an absolute tangible and mind-blowing download into what they are facing at the moment to make these solutions happen, right? It's not just COVID. It's about every day, the demand fluctuation, we call it VUCA environment, you name it, we have so many terms and different methods that we fly around in terms of sustainability. But today we can really have a good download from both James and Bernie about how to make these things happen. What are those methods? What are those tools that they have in their toolbox that they are using every day? And so please welcome James and Bernie. And I think it's just time to introduce yourself and what you're doing for your companies in your role. What are those key aspects that brings you to sustainability, our topic, and how to make it happen. So let's start with James then from Ireland, and then you can hand it over to Bernie. Okay.
Hi, good morning, Zsofia. Thank you so much. You've introduced us very well there. Thank you. I hope that it's going to be mind-blowing, like you say. So you're setting us up for success. So good morning from Dublin, Ireland. And my name is James. I'm leading the sustainability strategy for DPD Ireland, which is part of DPD Group. In Ireland, we have nearly 2,000 delivery vans and employees who work every day delivering parcels for, all across the island of Ireland. We are carbon neutral, so I'm leading all the carbon neutral and carbon emissions reporting projects, leading some green last mile projects where we try and reduce the last mile emissions down to zero, fleet electrification, so replacing our diesel vans with electric ones, and then our latest project involves monitoring the air quality in Dublin by using smart sensors on 100 of our delivery vans in Dublin. So lots to do. And just to your point, Zsofia, I think companies do spend a lot of time promoting their 2050 targets and maybe not enough time promoting their 2025 targets or even their 2022 targets, because, it's now that matters. So anyway, thank you. Good morning.
Absolutely. Can only agree with you, James. Over to you, Bernie.
Thank you, Zsofia and James. I'm Bernie. I'm from Who Gives a Crap, based in Melbourne, Australia. I've been working for the company for over 3 years now. and we deliver in Australia, the UK, USA, Canada, and Europe. Distribute our products directly to consumers around the globe. So we've a little bit more about the company, I guess, where we donate 50% of our profits to charity, and we also consider ourselves to be an extremely sustainable business in the way that we operate and the products that we manufacture. And of course, we're looking to become one of the most sustainable businesses there are on the planet, hopefully.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this introduction and telling us more about, this amazing initiative. And I'm sorry, I'm not laughing. It's just, as I told you before we started the discussion, I sense that you have an amazing amount of humor in your company, and you have that humble approach, that everybody needs to really give a crap, quite frankly, about sustainability. So I think we are right in the middle of our discussion. And with that said, both of you are really in the middle of, the action and how to make this happen. So from a logistical perspective, driving a global logistics setup, either with DPD or with Who Gives a Crap, both of you are involved in not just everyday tasks, but also how to set the strategy, how to talk to the teams about sustainability. How do you see what is really the key about setting the right strategy and setting, the right team setup and the mindset, how to change that mindset for your teams to actually address, the questions? What do you do from a leadership perspective? And any of you can start, really, Bernie or James. Just let me know, how you approach this.
Let Bernie start.
Please.
Thank you. We approach this from a company-wide perspective. Sustainability is built into our DNA. It was part of the reason why the company was started in the first place. And we really look at it at our product we call it from the cradle to the grave, and it's a terminology used in the sustainability sector. But everything from the raw materials that go into our products all the way through until the the disposal of the goods and what happens with them. So it's really built in, as I said, to our DNA throughout the whole company. And we challenge each other throughout the company to see what we can do to be more sustainable in how we do it. We just don't settle for products or components or parts of products that aren't sustainable and can't be either sourced, recycled, or made from a raw material that's ethical and sustainable in the first place. We also work with certifications such as FSC and B Corp, and we work to challenge other organisations outside of our own business as well to be more sustainable in everything that they do. Along the way, our business partners and also our competitors as well.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing. And you know what, this takes me in a nice segue to how these areas link to what James is doing, because you obviously have logistics service providers that you work with, right? We just established that it's impossible to work with DPD directly as you stand at the different ends of the world. But it takes us to that kind of big elephant in the room that mostly we talk about in supply chain. So how do you discuss these things with your logistics service providers, and what is really the feedback from them? Because I think James just mentioned a couple of things, and we get back to that shortly, how many things you can do from a logistics service provider's perspective. So I hope that you see the same engagement from your end, Bernie. Is that the case?
Yeah, we do. We get really good engagement from our providers. We speak with it very directly. We're very open about it. We've got an ambition to be carbon negative by 2025. We already offset all of our logistics-based emissions, but we want to reduce them. We want to eliminate them instead of offsetting them. So we talk very directly with our partners and our providers about it and how we can go about doing that. I think one of the really important things when you think about working with your partners and providers is you can't do everything at once. And at the moment, it's just physically not possible to eliminate all emissions throughout our logistics. And we know that, and our partners know that. So let's deal with the things that we can right now and work towards the bigger things, such as, I guess, like you said, the elephant in the room. Pretty much all of our products at the moment get delivered on a diesel vehicle, right? That's how do you? We can't eliminate that right now, but we can into the future. And how do we get there? How do we get there as quickly as possible?
Absolutely, you're so right, and I think you just hit the nail on the head with two things. One of it is really collaboration. And the other thing is being really honest and realistic about what you're doing and what you can deliver. And therefore, I'm really happy to hear that you have and you push on your 2025 plans. And what we can do right now is just to ask James directly how they are doing this, because I think it really gives us an opportunity to see, what others can do as well. Also with your diesel vehicles, right? So let's be frank, these things will not just disappear tomorrow, right? We cannot just, make them go away and then suddenly run everything on either hydrogen or water, right? So James, how do you do these things, and how do you think this can contribute, from a cost perspective, right? Let's face that this is also one of those elements where companies really need to take a second look, because we can dream anything we want, and then we also have an obligation towards stakeholders as well as the people who are working in the company, right? They also need to go home at the end of the day and take home their salary. James, over to you.
I mean, I'm coming at it from a different angle to Bernie. I suppose we are the logistics provider, right? And you're right, there still is a lot of diesel vans on the road today, everywhere, even in cities that you would think are the greenest. So, we still have a long road ahead of us. The beauty of an electric van is that an electric van loves stopping and starting, because they can regenerate the power when they slow down, and then they can use that to keep the battery going a bit longer. They're quiet around cities. In fact, that's actually the only dangerous thing, is that they're so quiet that you don't even hear them coming sometimes. So they actually have to install now an artificial noise on electric vans to make sure that nobody has an accident. I'm very lucky. I'm a bit different to Bernie. What Bernie said, I'm very lucky because our parent company, DPD Group, delivers 7.5 million parcels every day. So a huge company. They have set aside 200 million euro to decarbonize and to improve our entire operation and make it more, reduce our emissions. Back in 2012, the first thing they did, and I think Bernie has done this as well, was they put a price on carbon. So by buying offsets, the finance team is now paying attention. Okay, carbon is now a cost to the business. How do we reduce this cost? Well, we have to reduce our emissions, and I think that's a really robust way to actually reduce your emissions, is to put a price on it.
Absolutely, and I can only confirm one thing that you said. It's that you're thinking about these things strategically, right? So I think that's also one of the key elements where companies really need to make that conscious decision that, okay, as you said, we have these metrics, we have a cost attached to it, we monitor these things, and we make it clear for everyone in the company that these are important metrics and important targets to reach. And it doesn't matter, who works on it. It's more about, how we are aligned to reach these targets. What do you think about that kind of alignment in your settings, James? Is that already up and running, working? What do you think? What the feedback was from the teams? How do they see this?
I'm very lucky because our teams are very collaborative. They are very passionate about the environment. We ran a small staff engagement project this year where we handed out wildflower seed bombs to 500 of our employees. and we said, go and plant them in your gardens, or if you live in an apartment, plant them on your in a pot in the window. And we just launched a competition to share your photos of the wildflowers growing after a few months. And I'm really like impressed by the amount of beautiful flowers our staff have grown. And it's all because people are very interested in the environment, very interested in outdoors. And that's kind of, you're pushing an open door a little bit there. Where it gets challenging is where you ask the CEO to approve 200,000 euro for solar panels, and then it's like, okay, well, let's see. And to be honest with you, we've received great feedback, because I think everybody agrees they know it's the right thing to do. Now it's just a matter of how do you spend the investment in the smartest way to have the biggest impact.
It's really amazing to hear, and I think that brings us really directly to the other part where we wanted to discuss a couple of things, about the challenges. And frankly, I'm absolutely thrilled to hear that your teams, both on both sides, actually, from Bernie and from you, James, too, they are committed, they are motivated, they are happy to work on these things. And that's what my observation had been as well during the last already 10 years, actually, in different industries. So people are interested in making the environment better for themselves and for their own families, also societies. So indeed, we have a work to do towards the management and the stakeholders and the board of directors of the companies. But if we just keep to, the discussion around challenges, what are those other challenges that you see beyond, getting the leadership on board for certain investment approvals? What are the other challenges that you see directly in your area coming up around implementing sustainable solutions, or just engaging, either your partners or directly your customers? James, for you, I think this is also one of those aspects, because I think if I need to pair you off with Bernie as a customer, you both are on the same page. So it's a win-win, but I'm sure you also have, customers who are either lagging a little bit behind or want to run wildfire ahead of everything. So just give us a feel, about how you deal with these things. And we get back to Bernie about his challenges as well.
I mean, the biggest daily challenge is finding electric vans that are big enough to hold 150, 200 parcels, and also have a big enough battery that'll take you more than 100 kilometers, and at the same time costs less than €1,000 a month, or cost less than double the diesel equivalent. So because the bigger vans, and I'm talking about the transit size, the sprinter size, because those ones have such small range, it's very hard to actually recover your investment. So even with total cost of ownership model, there's a big challenge there. So we are actually having to pay to go electric. It's not yet giving us the saving that people say exists. And there is a saving for cars and for taxis, but for the larger delivery vans, we kind of fall between the cracks there. And then in terms of our customers, one major challenge, I think, is around packaging and around tertiary packaging. So we would receive large bulk orders of packaging, and each parcel is obviously packaged, but then it is put inside a large cardboard box, which is wrapped in plastic in some cases. So we need to eliminate that down to zero. We need to switch to returnable options. But one way supply chains are kind of the tradition. We need to make our supply chain more circular and look at, okay, how can we bring in 1,000 parcels and then give you back something that you can refill and give it back to us in a cycle. And it's an operational challenge, and that we need to overcome.
Absolutely. Bernie, on your end?
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more there, James. That's absolutely the way we see it as well. Trying to find vehicles that are the right size for our deliveries, and then work with our partners to buy those vehicles. They're not even available in Australia at the moment. In the US as well, they're not. Europe, UK, a little bit more availability, but once again, the right size vehicle is hard to find with the right range. completely agree with you there on the packaging as well. Like it's a huge, it can take up a huge amount of space, right, when you put something small into a large box and try to deliver it. So there's definitely a lot to do there in the circular economy. You know, for us, one of the biggest challenges is the cost, the entry point, like you said, for the vehicles. If we can't get our partners to buy them, can we buy them ourselves, and can we fund them? And at the moment, it is kind of touch and go whether it's viable to use an electric vehicle over a diesel. So, you know, I think we need a little bit more time there for the evolution of the electric vehicles to become more practical and cheaper, and that's already happening. But hopefully we can make that happen a little bit faster. You know, there's some other challenges around the world as well. It's just the infrastructure for electric vehicles. So even with working with carriers in different parts around the globe that we have been, some of them can't get them serviced. They can buy the vehicle, but they don't have the dealership or the network there to get them serviced adequately. And also charging as well. So you have to install charging at a location, which means that the vehicles have to be returned back to base generally to be charged, rather than have them charged at a driver's house or somewhere else. So, you know, the infrastructure is needs to catch up, I guess, to become really practical. Once again, I think that's more of a time thing, and that will happen. But, you know, how can we make that happen faster?
More than agreed, absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing all of these details, because I think these are the you know, the nitty-gritty that many people just don't see in terms of execution. So we have sometimes, you know, even from an external point of view, people just go in, you know, and they just don't see, you know, the daily nitty-gritty. So these are, I think, are very important. I also have logistics background, so from that perspective, I know exactly, you know, what it means to handle a parcel from the picking order to the delivery itself, and that's not exactly as easy as many people think it is, especially not with these challenging circumstances. For me, you know, based on what you were saying here, it's quite clear that, you know, that cost element is still, you know, a question for both sides, actually, for you as well, Bernie, and for you as well, James. Is there any extra tool or a different tool from the total cost of ownership methodology that you implemented, or did you add something to your methodologies to get a better grasp over the cost or the cost element of what you're doing and the changes? Because I think that's also pretty important to follow, you know, these changes in the processes rigorously to see where we are versus where we have been right before. And on top of that, do you see, you know, both of you, apart from the cost element, do you see potentially these restrictions or you know, hurdles that are still ahead of us having an impact on the business models companies would work with in the future? And I'm not just thinking about, you know, circular economy here, but sharing business models or differences in terms of how companies work, because that can have an impact. But I think you, Bernie, you already mentioned that your business model is already different from what normally companies would be doing with the subscription and etc., which is amazing to see. But on James's side, I'm sure that you mentioned already that, of course, customers are at different maturity stage. But do you see an impact on DPD as well as on the industry from your point of view? And then both of you can start, but please just go ahead. So let's see if you have other tools that you invented and what is the impact.
Okay, so there's a few things to unpack there. The first thing is, so what tools are available? So that's a really interesting question. Like if you think about it, you used to say, if we spend €5, we can make, you know, €10, for example. So return on investment. but now we're looking at, and we're thinking, excuse me, if you spend €1, how many tons or how many kilos of carbon emissions can you reduce? So it's about the emissions return on investment, not just a financial one. So if you say to me, James, I'm going to give you a budget of €10,000, what are you going to spend it on? And I'm thinking, should I spend it on more electric vans, a packaging communication to our customers, or maybe I should launch a campaign to get more more funding for an emissions reduction project or a grant or something like that. I can use this tool to calculate the most efficient way of spending that money, and I think that's a great tool. And I'm not sure if Bernie does something similar.
Bernie?
No, we don't have any tools like that at the moment, but that's really interesting to hear you talk about that. And one of the things that I like to think about is building a cost of carbon. We always talk about a landed cost of goods when we talk about product, right? How much did it cost me to get it to my warehouse? And that's the basis of our gross margin. Well, what's our carbon cost to get that in there? And how do we measure that, right? And we're one of the challenges that we've got at the moment to say, we want to be carbon negative. How do we do that? Well, how much carbon actually was used to deliver our goods? And I guess this is kind of a question to James and a challenge to the delivery market in a way, is to be able to report back to companies and say, here's how much carbon was used in the delivery of your product, right? And I know that's not easy to do, but to really be able to account for everything that we're all the carbon emissions that we're causing, we need to be able to measure it and then reduce it.
We do that on a larger scale, where we can tell our customers at the end of the year or at the end of the month, here's how much carbon we basically generated on your behalf, if you like, and more importantly, here's how much we reduced it by since last year. But to get to that level of detail, I think is super interesting. Would that be something that you would like as a potential customer? You're on the other side of the world, to see. So if a company delivered your product, for example, would you like to see a notification? Your parcel will arrive at a certain time, and here's how many grams or kilos of CO2 it's generated. Is that something you'd be interested in?
I think that'd be great. I think customers would love to be able to see that, particularly when that gets offset for the time being before it can be eliminated. I think customers would love to see that. But as a business, that's something we would love to see on aggregate, on a monthly, weekly basis, just so we could understand exactly how much had been emitted and how much we've reduced over a period of time. It's very hard to make a change to something like that unless you can measure it and you can understand it. And when we're putting our goods through a network where our goods are going on a truck to a distribution center and then on a smaller vehicle to a doorstep, it's really hard for us to see that carbon emission and get an understanding of how far that parcel's even traveled.
Especially probably in the last mile. Like there's a lot of talk now about the last mile. More than half of our emissions is our vans, so it is the last mile piece, and we're having a kind of a debate and a discussion internally now about what is the most carbon effective way of delivering a parcel. Is it to deliver to somebody's office, their house, an apartment? Is it to deliver to a locker that they then pick up, or to a shop nearby, like a pickup shop? And bearing in mind, there's a lot of variables, like how do you deliver it to the shop? How far is the distance between the depot and the shop? And then what mode of transport will the consignee use to collect that from the shop? So like if they come on their bicycle to pick it up, it's probably less. But if they come in their, 20-year-old, car, then maybe it's actually a lot more. Maybe we'd be better off delivering it in our brand new vans. And it's a massive debate. But what we do know is that at the moment, the best way for us to reduce emissions is to increase the first time delivery success. So we don't want to have to come back tomorrow or come back in a few days. And we don't want to have you chasing the parcel all over the world, and likewise us chasing you all over the world. So by using technology to guarantee that someone is going to be home, that they know when you're going to arrive, and that they have options and they have flexibility. I'm not going to be home. Please deliver it to the depot. Please give it to my neighbor. Please leave it in the shed. That you can guarantee, 99% first time on time.
That's a really great point you make.
I think, you know, based on what you were saying to me so far, I think you have a project in the UK for your teams because you work together in that country. So maybe that transparency and how to make that transparency happen is something that most partners could work on in a collaborative way and share that information, not just between the partners, but also for the benefit of the customers. So they can see, you know, linking back to what you just said, James, that the behavior, for instance, that I asked for a package to be delivered to my home and then, oops, I'm not at home, that has an impact, right? And it's not just going unnoticed by the environment if DPD has to come again to my home to deliver or attempt it 3 times, right? Or I can just do something else. Before we move on with some of my next questions, we got some from the audience. They got inspired by your input. So I have a question from Michael Boyle to James in the first place, but Bernie, you can also chip in. So how do you ensure that those solar panels that that you invest in, they do not become e-waste tomorrow, right, or 5 years down the line? This is also part of, you know, the circular economy and how we make sure that those solutions we buy for making it better, it doesn't actually cause, you know, bigger problems later on. So James, back to you. Is there any plan there?
Okay, so if I understand the question correctly, it's around electrical waste, right? So you don't want to generate more than you need.
Correct, and also specifically about, you know, the solar panels or the alternative energy solutions that you might use both at the warehouse or in the vans. Yeah, so all the electric solutions, the e-waste solutions, yes, in general.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's easy to go out there and buy vans now, but don't forget you're buying a massive battery, which took a lot of work to make. So after 4 years, when you throw the van away, what's going to happen to the battery? So right now we have vans that are nearly 3 years old. And so what we're looking at now is, can we refurbish old batteries and put them in the corner of a depot, for example, and use that as a load balancing tool so that you can buy, you can store green energy when it's windy. You can store solar energy when it, you know, in the daytime. Or even at night when electricity is cheaper, and then you can use that battery throughout the day to power the depot or to charge the vans. Even you can charge them, you know, rapidly, without needing to increase your MIC in the building. And it all comes from essentially refurbishing, you know, battery cells, which are 99% still good. Maybe not in a vehicle, but maybe for a large storage on site. So I think that's a really interesting prospect to kind of upcycle your old batteries.
Absolutely, and I think probably the question was also directing to a point where we need to get back to collaboration between, you know, partners are also your suppliers, right? So who you are collaborating with to get those solar panels or that electric vehicle. But as you said already, I think it's a good thing to mention that sometimes, you know, it's not just about, you know, having that good intention, but also the choices that you have, right? So it's not always available, right? So that's a process, as Bernie mentioned as well. We also have other questions from Mohammed. So as James said, you deliver around 7 million parcels a day. So there will be a percentage of returns. What are your strategies to avoid, you know, or the impact of returns, reverse supply chain and carbon emission point perspective? What is really the plan there? And I think we discussed it partially, but is there any you know, incentive or any kind of extra process that you could put in place or had put in place already to reduce these failures, or not even failures, but sometimes, you know, just one more try or return?
Yeah, well, one reason for returning is for example with fashion. The person doesn't like doesn't fit them, or they don't like the color, or whatever reason, they send it back. Like, we do have a very circular supply chain, and we're in Ireland. We operate north and south of the border. But we obviously have trucks going every day between Ireland and the UK, which is where a lot of the distribution centers would be for a lot of those customers. So there is a circularity there in that we have trucks that are going there anyway. So we have that capacity to handle returns, which means we don't have too much additionality. The other thing about returns is that it tends to be less urgent. So you don't necessarily need, next day to get back to where it came from in UK or Germany or wherever. So we can use basically the easiest way possible, which is often the lowest emissions way as well.
That's already more than many others are doing. So it's really good to hear. I think there will be an opportunity later on or as soon as possible, as it stands. But hopefully you get some support from the e-commerce dealers as well, the bigger fashion houses, for instance, where they could incentivize from their perspective to make sure that people, don't just order at their whim, or at the desire and then take a look at it at home. But let's see how that develops. I mean, of course, you can have some influence, and I think you do what you can. But there is also the other side of that equation, right? So it's really good to see. And we have a question for both of you, actually. And that sounds like, so how do you see the potential of carbon emission-free last mile delivery solution in the Southeast Asian region, and how local logistics providers can be motivated to invest in electric vehicle technology and solar powered vehicles? So Southeast Asia is, I guess, most of the people who are listening to us, they are either from there or have connections there, and it's a typical situation where you have a lot of islands. It's not exactly easy to deliver. So where do you see this potential of carbon emission free last mile delivery, and how would you approach this with the local providers?
I think I'll let Bernie start, maybe.
Yeah, it's very good.
I think the potential is actually really good in Southeast Asia. You've got really good population density, which means that vehicles don't necessarily have to travel so far from distribution points, right? So you've got the age-old equation in product distribution, right? Have you got the right product in the right place where a customer wants to buy it? And when we're talking about deliveries directly to people's home, you actually make that equation a little bit easier, and you can not try to put your product into a retail outlet, but you can have it at a distribution center, and a distribution center can cover a much larger area. So I think the opportunity is very real in Southeast Asia. If you've got your distribution center set up right, and you've got the partners who could move those goods for you, considering that the distances, and I can't quote for everywhere in Southeast Asia, but the distances could be quite short in transit because of the population densities. What we really need is the infrastructure to be able to do it. We work with our warehouse partners and our manufacturers to put solar panels on their roofs. So we'll either help to support that financially, or we'll work with them in a way to make that happen. And with our distribution partner, warehouse partner here in Australia, that once the calculations were done, it was an absolute no-brainer to put solar panels on the roof of their building, even though they haven't got electric vehicles yet, just because it just made financial sense to do it. So we just went ahead and did it with them. We worked with them to do it. The next step for us is hopefully to get those electric vehicles in there and have them charging from that solar power as well. I think that if we can do that here in Australia and make it viable here in Australia with the low population density and big vast distances to travel, I think in Southeast Asia it should be able to be done, equally as well, or hopefully even better.
Absolutely, Bernie. And James, please go ahead. Yeah.
I think what Bernie said is spot on. Definitely the population density is going to make things a lot easier. Like there's some of those, skyscrapers in Bangkok, you could easily send one electric van would do the whole building probably. Do you know what I mean? Whereas over here, I think the highest building in Dublin is probably only 10 or 12 stories, you know, so it's like what they call a low rise in Bangkok. But I actually lived in Bangkok for 4 years, so I'm familiar with the like they redefine innovation. If you think about what they've done with tuk-tuks, motorbikes, like a motorbike can be a family vehicle over there. They can retrofit it to carry any item you can imagine, from food to gas tanks. They're very innovative, certainly in Thailand. And then if you look at the incredible tech coming out of Southeast Asia, like the apps like Grab, like Line and Line Man, and the rapidly growing middle class, like there's some serious consumer power there, that are environmentally aware. They are interested in you know, buying or shopping in an eco-friendly way, and it's all about education and letting them know that if you shop this way, you can reduce your emissions, and if you shop that way, maybe it's not so environmentally friendly. But they also have a massive price on convenience and speed. So when they go and they're shopping online, they want to know where it is, they want to know when it's going to arrive. And it should probably be, you know, today for services like Line Man, it's probably within the hour. So it sets the bar really high for delivering, doing a really good job, but doing it in a low emissions way as well. So the other thing I'd add to that is, being in Southeast Asia, you've got some fantastic nearby supply chains, so you can probably access the likes of batteries and innovative transport technology like e-scooters a lot easier than maybe some of the customers in Europe, for example. So you have some big producers right on your doorstep making all those low emissions vehicles.
Absolutely. And as much as I would love to hear at least half a day more from both of you, we soon need to wrap up the discussion. And I think we covered so many things. What I'm hearing both of you saying is that also in Southeast Asia and everywhere around the world, you need to harvest, you know, that collective knowledge from the people and the local people that you have, and you can have really frugal innovation, and resourcefulness is also part of the equation, which comes back to the people aspect that you both mentioned already right up front at the start. So it's amazing to hear. And just lastly, I just want to have one more question to both of you, very fast on the answer. What is the next big thing that you would focus in the next 12 months to make sustainability happen in your own company? And then we need to wrap up after that.
James, sure. There is two things that we're really focused on. One is, how can we get electric vehicles for delivery? We know that you know, delivery transport is 25% of our carbon emissions in total. So it's a huge opportunity for us there to reduce. And the other one is more localized manufacturing of products rather than international shipments. They're the two biggest focuses for our business.
Amazing.
Definitely
James?
agree. Keeping an eye on the rapidly changing electric vehicle market. When is the electric transit going to come out in Ireland? When is the electric crafter? When is the electric this, that, and the other? When are we going to get an electric box body? Electric trucks, you know, so it's all about keeping an eye on the technology, keep refreshing that news feed, and keep trying to see what the next innovation is going to be. But at the same time, regulation. So what's carbon tax going to do in the upcoming budget to the price of a litre of diesel? This is going to help our cause a lot as well.
It's amazing. Honestly, both of you, thank you so much for your insights and for sharing what you're doing. I think it's really valuable, relevant for the audience. And please, I hope that that you both enjoyed this discussion as well. And if you can, please just engage on LinkedIn, you know, via Parcel Monitor, either on LinkedIn or via parcelmonitor.com. I'm sure there will be more questions that will be coming up. So if you can just take a look at them, and of course we will pick up the rest of the questions via LinkedIn. That's for our audience. Sorry that we were unable to answer all of the questions, but I think the discussion is so broad and so deep that we can really go on for the next 2 weeks if we want to. But we also have some work to do. So thank you again for Bernie and James for today's session. Thank you for our audience for being here, for the good questions. And well, see us next time, and keep in touch, because I think we have a lot to discuss and to collaborate on. And please, again, everybody follow us on parcelmonitor.com and on LinkedIn, and just watch out for the upcoming sessions. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day or evening for you, Bernie. Thank you, James. Thank you, Bernie.
Thank you.
Thanks.